If you could just introduce yourselves to the fine folks at home, I'd really appreciate it.
My name is Anna Maria, and I am the founder and vocalist in the band Vajra.
We love playing on stage, so we go up there and we have a good time, and we want you to feel that.
We're all musicians from different pasts.
That ended up being one of my favorite songs that I've recorded.
One of my favorite horror movies is Event Horizon, how it was like a possibility, almost like using science to whip yourself into hell. Oops, you know.
You want to hear it fast. You want to hear it. You want to hear it well played. You want to feel that intensity.
Punk rock is not an excuse to suck.
Everybody, Tone Lopez here with another episode of Heartfelt Horror here on the Heartfelt Horror Media Network. Welcoming you all into 2025. And we're starting off with a bang. For those of you that have been listening to us since 2024, you know we primarily interviewed musicians. But today we have some special guests that are working on a project far beyond that. If y'all could introduce yourself to the viewers at home, we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm Adam Knoyer. I'm one of the co-creators of Vampire Surf Cult.
I'm Connor Benson, and I'm also one of the co-creators of Vampire Surf Cult.
Angel here, and I'm hanging out with these guys.
Angel's been helping out with the project since day one. Like, you know, when we first kind of like assembled the team, we weren't sure what we didn't even know that we were going to make a cartoon necessarily. Like, there was ideas of like comic books and other media and all this other stuff. So you know, we're about, like, I'd say a little over 2 years into the project, which is just wild. And it's just like taking a new life of its own the past couple months.
Yeah, definitely. And for anyone that's unfamiliar with Vampire Surf Cult, could you give a little overview?
Yeah, so Vampire Surf Cult is kind of like a indie animated series, self-funded, and you know we've basically created a world full of monsters, werewolves, vampires. We're all huge nerds when it comes to like horror and 80s movies and monsters and spooky things, as well as like, you know, punk music and things like that. We have been, you know, we've created this world, and now we're trying to make a show, and we've been working on the first season for, again, like for more than a year, actively on the first season. The trailer alone that we have on YouTube, if you want to check it out, it's like a 3-minute and 50-second trailer that took us a year alone to produce and create and finish. So creating a show is very, very complicated and takes a long time, but like, we're like, all right, let's just do this. Let's build a brand around it. Let's have fun with it. Let's have different activations outside the show. And like, let's like build a fan base, have fun with anyone who, like, you know, this resonates with, and do a ton of different shit while we're simultaneously trying to create a pilot that will hopefully someday land on a television near you.
We have 3 of like the co-creators and, you know, day one supporters here right now, but this isn't the entire crew that started this off, correct?
No, so the core team is like 5 people. It's, you know, I came up with the idea. I've been helping basically I'm kind of just producing this at like a high level. So I'm working with the animation team, which consists of 1 person. The writing team, again, 1 person, who's Connor. And, you know, working with also our recordings, like the recording partners and musicians. So I've been like kind of the glue that makes it all stick together. And like, yeah, and Connor's been writing. Connor can tell you more about that for sure.
Yeah, so we've just been really building out the world, adding layers, and over the 2 years through the production of the trailer, you know, we kind of started to realize who characters were, and like Adam said, it's been awesome. I can focus mostly on the writing and stuff. Darcy's not here, but he is, I don't know what we'd exactly call him. He's an experienced voice actor, and he's a software developer, so he's been handling a lot of like our grassroots, like website stuff, online games.
Yeah, like with the Lunar Lake Mystery Challenge, we just did like an online web puzzle, like that he was the mastermind behind that. And I think like so, and then we also have Jeff Monska, who's part of the founding team. He's like the dude who did all the first designs of all the characters and like kind of all the branding, and like so he's been our core artist since day one. And then like our most unsung hero who lives in Turkey, his name's Mutlu, and he's been our animation director, and he's basically like led all animation efforts, like from storyboarding to final production. He's like we've brought on a small team that's helped him out, and so that's kind of the core team. It's Connor, Darcy, Jeff, Mutlu, and I, and then Angel's been with us the whole time, and like we're hoping to grow his role more in the brand as well as things start to progress further.
Yeah, and as things start to grow, I mean, I guess sticking with that, how did you all get in touch with each other? Like, how did this team get together?
Yeah, it's a good one. So I've worked at Hasbro creating toy lines and working in design there for a long time, and that's where I met Jeff. So me and Jeff worked hand in hand there for I think like 4 or 5 years. So we created a really good working relationship of like, I'd come up with crazy ideas, and Jeff would, with his amazing art talent, be able to blast things out and like bring stuff to life. So that was just like we ended up quitting Hasbro around the same time. And then I was like, I've always wanted to do something like outside of a corporation or a job that we could like truly own and do whatever the hell we wanted to. Jeff was an easy pick for a partner there. Simultaneously, funny story, me and Connor are cousins. So we've grown up together, spent our summers together since we were kids. And, so we have a ton of cousins, and all of our cousins are simultaneously all into like horror, and we're all big dorks, and we play role-playing games together, and, done that since we were like literally babies. And yeah, so it was just an easy fit of like, hey, we're doing this stuff. And, we came together, and like Connor, you can speak to it, Connor, but him and Darcy have gone back forever too.
Yeah, we went to college together and worked together. So me and Darcy have been tight for a long time. And he, again, loves horror and is also a giant nerd. So it just made a lot of sense.
Yeah, you guys had the Monday Morning Macabre podcast about that. And then Angel, I met Angel. So I used to do a horror merchandise brand called Rat Knife that makes like collectible horror enamel pins. Me and my partner Garrett did that for a long time. I ended up stepping back there, so Garrett's still doing it. Shout out to Rat Knife. Go buy some pins. But through doing horror conventions around the Northeast, we ran into Angel and his homies that were also doing some horror stuff. At a podcast, I'll let you talk about it, Angel, for sure.
Yeah. We met through Rat Knife initially, built out like most people do, an online relationship first, and then we were able to bump uglies in the flesh at horror conventions, and put faces to the conversations online. And like I've always looked up to Garrett and Adam for what they were building through Rat Knife at the time, and getting to know them over the years. Awesome dudes. So by way of Adam, I've met Connor and all the other people, and through the horror community, and just the love of trying to create something awesome and cool. And like he said, that it's tangible, and it's it feels like and is yours. You know what I mean? So can't wait to see what happens and where we end up.
Yeah, definitely. And as you were saying about horror, I mean, a show about surfing vampires is obviously going to have some horror influences to them. You brought up 80s horror movies, and I think in one of your videos on your own the Vampire Surf Cult YouTube channel brings up like 90s, early 2000s cartoons. I think even one of the jokes in the Kickstarter thing is one of the questions that's asked is this Adventure Time?
Yeah.
Which, Jeff Monska, his art style kind of resembles that.
Yeah.
What are some of those maybe specific movies or shows or things that inspired you individually?
Yeah, I can go for a while there. I mean, so I think Vampire Surf Cult it's like purposely designed. Like we're not trying to be like, we are so original. The first time anyone's ever thought of this. No, it's like we've basically stolen all of the things we love from every form of media to just smash it together into something that we think is very special. So like, yeah, the inspirations can go from, you know, like especially in the horror world, like the obvious ones like Lost Boys and, you know, everything from like even like we were last week, me and Connor sat down and watched Interview with a Vampire, and we were like, there's so much fucking like good stuff in this movie that makes so much sense for the series. But I think like Little Monsters is another like, you know, I don't know if I'd consider it horror, but like that's a like the Thrash Cody relationship is totally Maurice and Ben Savage's character. Like that's a mirror of themselves there. But yeah, I think like the world of Blood Island it's all monsters, right? And it's like that's not by accident. Like growing up and even to this day, like whenever I watch media and cartoons and read books and stuff, I always love monsters and villains. Like I always connect with the villains. So we were like, oh, let's make a whole world of them. Why not? But yeah, outside of like the like just simply 80s horror, I think like there's so many different places that, you know, we've been inspired by. Like I think Gravity Falls by Alex Hirsch. It's like a, you know, a really smart kids show that is incredibly inspirational for us. And the way he like hides information and lays Easter eggs and mini puzzles, like we're super inspired by that. We just kind of want to apply it to an adult animation. And I think like from the comedy side, from like Spicoli, from Fast Times to Cheech and Chong to like, you know, like all your favorite stoner movies, Pineapple Express, and what's the one with Dave Chappelle and Jim Brewer?
Half Baked.
Half Baked. Like
you want to go for some ice cream?
he killed Killer Bee. But yeah, dude, like we are heavily inspired by all that stuff, and I think like, you know, we're not afraid to admit it. Yeah, we're media 100%. So like we're not afraid to admit that we love all that stuff, and all that stuff is 100% inspiring us. But yeah, that's just, and you guys can add more to that list for sure.
Growing up, you mentioned early 2000s cartoons, and Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy was a big one for me. That's a great like cartoon that had a lot of darkness to it and horror themes and vibes. So I'd throw that one in there for sure.
I'm a big old Ren and Stimpy fan from back in the day. The old, but yeah, it's been good to see like a lot of the stuff that we like represented, and that seeing that a lot of people are clicking with it, and also feeling like, oh, this is my shit.
Yeah, you know totally. It's all by design too. It's like we want people to be like, oh, that reminds me of this or whatever. Like we're happy. Like I feel like we like in that trailer that we recorded where we're like, people have questions like, is this Adventure Time? Like on one hand, some people like came at us like, you know, in the comments being like, this is a rip off of Adventure Time, and it's like, yeah, dude, sure, whatever, we'll take that. I mean, you've seen like, you know, we haven't even got a full episode out, and like we have a very specific way we want to tell our story, and it's clearly like as soon as we do that, like it's gonna be obvious that it has little to do with the Adventure Time, but like for us, for people to even compare us to that is an honor. Like we're super huge fans of Pendleton Ward and all that, and it's like that art style has inspired countless cartoons, and we don't even we get so many. Like a lot of people compare us to Final Space, Flapjack, like all those things, and you know, we never take it as an offense or like, hey, we're copying something. It's in my opinion, it's like, yes, we are inspired by all those things, and we love it.
Because we're just big nerdy fans, just making a show we want to watch, really, and that's gonna show
for sure. Yeah, and I mean, like you were saying, like fans of that type of show, or you know, those kind of early 2000s, 90s, even kind of early 2010s, like that's what caught my interest right away. Is wow, this seems like something I would have watched back then, and you know, it has that adult element to it of just something I guess for me now as an adult.
I think one of my favorite things that people have commented is that like this feels nostalgic already, or like I feel like this came out back then. Like that's like super cool, because we wanted to do that. Like we've kind of like in different ways we've just, and like this is the first time we're saying this stuff because it's just us talking about it normally, but like we're like we want this to be like a love letter to Saturday morning cartoons, we're not going to try to get like so esoteric or like so avant-garde with our cartoon that it's hard to follow or understand. Like there was some sort of beauty to being a kid and being able to like simply understand a story arc in a very simplistic way. And we love that. And we think like adults still want that. They want that comfort of that. So we're going to play completely into that nostalgia trip and that simple storytelling. I think where we want to have fun is the layering on top of that. So we can get as fucking weird and as gruesome and as like, dark as we want, but not make it so out there that it's like hard to understand or care about,
Yeah, and that's the thing, that to go back to what you were saying, Adam, about the layering, being here from day one and like building along with you guys, getting a sneak peek at Connor's writing and stuff like that, like just some of the artwork that hasn't even been presented yet. There's a lot of layers that is going to be awesome.
It's a big stinky onion.
Yeah, and that was a great time, I think, for adult animation you have stuff like Invincible on Prime that's been blowing up forever. You mentioned eventually wanting to potentially get on a network or maybe streaming service, and YouTube has been a place where, you look at stuff like Hell of a Boss or Has Been Hotel that's now on streaming services. I think Amazing Digital Circus just got signed on to Netflix.
Huge.
Yeah. Who is it? Zach Hadel, Psychic Pebbles. He was doing YouTube animations for years, but now he has his own show on Adult Swim, Smiling Friends. Is that like the long-term goal for y'all? Would you like to eventually get to kind of those heights?
Yeah, I mean, that's a dream, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, we just want to make this thing. And I think like, it's not about like, oh, we're going to be rich. Like, this is going to be crazy. Like, this is a bucket list item. Like, I've made so much shit for brands and companies outside of myself, and working with my best buds on something that we own entirely, and there's no guy in a suit being like, well, you shouldn't make the vampire lick the other one's butt. It's like we can do whatever we want.
They're gonna lick the butt.
We can do whatever we want, and like I think like
right now
that's the beauty of Vampire Surfgirl to us, is like, dude, it's like we're having so much fun with it because no one's telling us what to do, and it feels like we're kind of like being sneaky about like, I don't know. It just feels like that. I mean, the end of the day, if we got on a major network, that would be radical, like, of course. And that would be amazing to be able to do this full time and like, have it pay some bills and whatnot. Like, that'd be great. I think like the references that you just mentioned are all like best in class. We love what those shows are doing.
Yeah.
Glitch Productions and like what they're doing in indie animation and how they've like created an incredible business model using like literally fan power in a YouTube channel. And now, like in their deal with Netflix, like they didn't give up a single piece of ownership there. Like they're licensing Netflix, which to Netflix, which is like, a dream state for us would be for us to retain our ownership, be able to make content and pay for it, so we're not like dipping into my life savings, and continue to just make rad shit and then license it to whoever. Like in Netflix, I don't know, like whatever. I'd be happy with Tubi. Or so I don't anywhere, right? But it's like, I think the end of the day goal is to tell the story. And as long as we can get the story out, like we don't really mind what platform that's on, as long as it's available to anyone who wants to get into it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, as far as indie animation, it's a crazy time right now. Like there's new deals popping up that are like unprecedented, like creator profit share models that are like, there seems like different ones all the time. So a lot's changing right now, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, cause like what I've noticed, like, with rolling stuff out and seeing people like, do fan art and like that kind of stuff, like goes back to what Adam was saying about there's no suits, saying like you can't, like people can't do that. So like I like the stage that it's in now, because it's starting to feel like more of like building out a community. You know what I mean? There's people that have gotten fucking tattoos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wild.
And like, me and Adam have texted like, holy shit, like, dude, like this is fucking crazy, and
nutty.
So it's been awesome to see like how it's being received, like even on like our grassroots organically, like, just started blasting out. Like you said, the Instagram sat with, I think, like 100 followers, and then like
for 2 years
that week, yeah, and then within like the week of like actually like, just like let's start feeding.
Yeah,
and it was like, woo.
The story there too is like there was no like all right, we've manufactured the perfect marketing plan to get followers. It was like basically we realized we had some really interesting conversations with some people in the industry, and like, we ended up getting some really good advice. Like Olin Rogers, I don't know if you've seen Final Space, but Finals, like another huge inspiration for Vampire Surf Cult. We ended up Connor was able to get a hold of him. We ended up having a super impactful conversation with the dude where he was just like, we basically had finished that trailer last summer and we're like, okay, we've done the trailer. What's next? Like, let's go to Hollywood and try to get them to, make this thing. And it was just hilarious how like we just are so ignorant. Like we've never done anything like this. We don't know what we're doing. So we were like, yeah, we'll just go to Hollywood and like, sell the show. And it was just like that's not how this works. And like the way that the animation industry is right now is like that's a joke. And Owen had like the most like, impactful advice where he's like, fuck that. He's like, just build it on your own. Like do this completely indie. He's like, you need funding for more content, like, build a community and, do a crowdfunding piece. And that was like what pushed us over the edge to be like, all right, we need to fucking show the world this thing. We're not going to keep it like we've been hiding it for so long. And so the initial idea was like, let's launch a Kickstarter. That's the next step for us to make more without spending our own money or, going into debt insanely. So making that Instagram was me being like, oh, if we launch a Kickstarter and we don't have an Instagram that's active, we're going to look like a bunch of fakes. You know what I mean? So I was like, how do we like legitimize ourselves? Oh, let's start posting on Instagram. And that was kind of it. Like as soon as we did that, it just started rolling. It was just like wild. It was really cool. Because it was ramping up so much, because we had so much engagement from the people that were like, having fun with us. Honestly, in my head, like the Kickstarter became less important, and it was like, oh, we're growing something here without a show, but we're growing like a fan base that's going to support this thing, and like it made all the sense in the world. So then we were like, okay, how do we do this the right way? Ended up, again, thanks to Olin, he connected us with Kickstarter folks who were able to be like, we had a long conversation with them about, should we just launch this thing out the gate or like, and they give us some really good tips. And so that's kind of where we're at now of like, let's just keep building the brand. And like, we're going to eventually launch a Kickstarter to try to help fund the pilot and even, future animation and activations. And we're going to do that in like early 2025 because, the advice we got from Kickstarter was like, yeah, build your following, like, and get them to really engage and find the places where you can like, really give them value so they want to give it back. So it was like, it was just a really cool, perfect storm of events where it's like, oh shit. And then this stuff started ramping up so quickly and we're getting so much like, I'm telling you, man, like you were one of the first, like Tone, you were one of the first people to reach out and be like, hey, like, let's chat. But you like from that first week we were live forward, it's like every day we're getting 10, 15, 20, 50 emails from voice actors, artists, musicians, sound engineers, just people that were like, hey, we just dig what you're doing and like, can we help? And like, or, are you hiring or whatever? But it was just so obvious that like this was hitting some sort of chord with a lot of people. And that was just magical to see. And and it's just been a wild ride. It's just like, and I remember one point being like, this is moving too fast. I don't know what's going on. I think it was like when so we got some executive producers out of Hollywood of all places ended up reaching out to us, and that was like the moment of like, dude, this is going too fast. Like, what are we doing? We need a lawyer. We need an agent. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, are we gonna get Brad Pitt to voice a vampire? Like,
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, we just started freaking out. So it was just like again, like we came back to earth on it, and like our executive producers, a group of ferrets, have been nothing but rad, and they totally see our vision. And it's like, it's still gonna be brick by brick. Like, there's not like, there was one moment where it's like, oh, executive producers, like, oh, we're gonna be in Lambos next week, but like that's definitely not the case at all. And we're gonna still build this thing brick by brick, but it's just really cool that like we've clearly hit a chord and people are reacting, and then like, we're building a cult around us to have fun and like, make this thing real.
We're open for business. We need members. We need the cult members.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that's been really cool with how fast you guys have grown is your engagement with the following and everything. Like, looking on your Instagram right now, you'll find fan art from people that have been creating it already. For Halloween or for Thrashoween, your guys' event that you had, on your website, which we'll have down below, you had like an interactive puzzle that you had to solve to get what was it? It was a skateboard deck, correct?
Yeah, it was a skateboard deck by Karma Void. And like we try to like again, like we just love telling the stories. So like we wanted to do this mini short for Halloween based on a character we didn't introduce in the initial trailer. Named Eclipse, and she's one of the Shred Lords of Blood Island, and so she's like this badass goth chick vampire Shred Lord who lives in this like really radical cathedral on this place called Lunar Lake, which is the only freshwater lake on Blood Island that has waves. And there's this whole story of why it has waves, but we're not going to go there quite yet. But yeah, so we had this like 45-second animation. And again, it's not like this, like we're like uncovering all these like, lore bits and stuff. It's basically just introducing her as a character and trying to have fun to be like, hey, this is something to look forward to. This character is going to be included in the series. So we were like, let's build a world around that. So we did the short, we did a bunch of art to go with Eclipse. We did like Karma Void did the skateboard. And then like we created this interactive web puzzle that it was way more challenging than a lot of people expected it to be. But we just like went on nerd overload on like, hey, how do we make like this isn't a show for kids, this is a show for adults. Like let's fucking challenge people. And so that went live. Yeah, that went live on Thrashoween Halloween night, and it was really cool. And it was like, we were able to prove that we could do a game and have like a solid win state and followers and like, people that are going to actually play and stuff like that, which was what we really wanted to try to see what that would be like. And that was a success. And then, we tried to, see if we could actually, execute a game with our animation style and with our characters and stuff like that. So we proved we could do a game. So now we want to do more games, which is awesome. But yeah, the cool part is like that 6 days later, two of our followers, one was a girl who was homesick from school that day, a high school girl, and the other was another woman who's a lawyer, and they teamed up and they went through and they basically shared their knowledge of like, I've been poking at this for 3 hours. I finally like figured out how to crack the vampire heads. And then like, oh, well, did you see that there was bold text in the texting scene that happened after you solved the heads? Well, what did you get for the letters? What did you get for the letters? And they're like, well, like, how do we sort this out? And like, they ended up like step by step by step, the both of them together went through. So at the end of it, I was like, I can't just like we're not going to give one skateboard between like, so we're like,
them,
so we're like, we'll make two and we'll get them out to you guys. And like, yeah, it was just it was really cool to see like not only like people were into it, but they actually like teamed up outside of our like outside of the main post that we were talking on, and they were able to like work together to solve this like super nerd puzzle we created. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, that's commitment. It was cool seeing people like, oh, I'm stuck here, and you're like, keep searching.
Yeah. It's almost, I feel like bad. It's like, I don't know. I think next game we're going to do something like, an endless runner or like a run and gun or like a platformer, because like the cipher puzzle, it just pisses people off. I feel like
it takes,
it depends though, right? It depends on what type. So like those two were willing to like put the time and effort in.
Totally.
I think regardless of like you could have sent them like a sticker pack, but I think it's just like those two, at least those two people. But there was a lot of people in the that were trying to run through it, and that's not working on my phone. You're like, get on your computer, and, yeah, that day was fun. That day was fun.
Yeah, and you brought up other games, and the first thing I thought of was in the trailer you have two vampires kind of arguing with each other, playing some arcade cabinet game, button mashing, arguing, and then you have a short of a little 8-bit or 16-bit actual wave game. So as soon as you said another game, that's what my mind went straight to is a little vampire surf game.
You're onto something there. We can't comment, but that's another thing too, is we made that GIF of that 8-bit game probably before we even made the trailer. Like that was just like an early asset that we made of like, does this make sense? Do we want to do a show? Do we want to do a video game? And that little looping surfer 8-bit game has stuck in my head this whole time. And I'm like, we need to do this at some point.
Yeah, no, there's a ton of just interactive stuff to do with y'all's page. If you're not following their Instagram page, Vampire Surf Cult on Instagram. Are y'all anywhere else as well, like Facebook, or you have your own website, I know.
Yeah, we have vampiresurfcult.com. We have Vampire Surf Cult on Instagram. We have our YouTube channel, which is like vampire.surf.cult, I think. Is that it, Connor? Maybe I'm wrong. No, sorry. I'm wrong.
I think that's what it is.
No, I'm wrong. That's the TikTok. So we have a TikTok.
Oh.
And that's the
TikTok.
vampire.surf.cult. And I think on YouTube we're just Vampire Surf Cult.
Lots of stuff to see. Like, go follow them. They're, like I said, they're gonna have more stuff to do. And ramping up early 2025 is when the Kickstarter releases.
Yeah.
And going back to that, listening to your community and your fans and everything, y'all have actually asked your community to, hey, what do you want to see in the rewards tier? And I think, what was it? There was like a model figure of Thrash was what was voted to be created. You all have talked about a vinyl for the EP that's been released, which we'll get into as well.
Totally.
Anything else that you can talk about coming up on that Kickstarter?
Yeah, so we did I think one of the biggest ones that our followers reacted to was we did a plush of Slug the Bat, which is right behind which is behind me on the couch. I'll go grab it. But yeah, it's and we put squeakers in the butt cheeks, which is hilarious. So that
is hilarious.
Yeah. So in my career too, like as I think I mentioned before, like I've been in product design for a while, so like I just get so stoked on doing these fun products. So like our Kickstarter is going to be stacked. So we have the Thrash vinyl toy. I should be getting that sample in like very soon. But yeah, that's going to be killer. It's like a 7-inch toy of Thrash. It's posable. It's like multi-part, all vinyl. So we did it the right way, and we had Karma Void do a killer package that no one's seen yet. So look forward to that. We're currently working on the vinyl record, which will have a B-side. We'll have new songs that no one's ever heard. And then of course, like a killer jacket. We're gonna go nuts on the art there. And we're definitely gonna do like a splatter vinyl or something little gnarly to make it all work together. And then so we're doing that stuff, and then we're doing like a Blood Island survival guide book. That should be really rad, of just kind of like giving people a lay of the land of Blood Island. And then then your normal stuff, t-shirts and posters and cool collectibles. But yeah, more to come there. I think now that we're kind of planning on to do this Kickstarter thing from basically we're going to be promoting Kickstarter from now till early 2025. We're going to be sharing what are our reward tiers, what are the prices, what the details are. We're not just going to wait till we launch it. We're just going to put that all out there so people can talk and tell us how they feel. And I think what you mentioned of getting out there in front of our fan base and everyone is, I think that's the biggest thing we missed out on the last 2 years. And we've only been public for about 2 months now. And I'm like, dude, we should have been doing this the whole time. So I think us conversing about what we're planning on doing, what we want to do next, all that stuff, and having those conversations, I just don't see a downside there. It's been really fun, and people feel like they're a part of the team, and it's I think that's rad. And it just makes everyone it just makes everything feel like it's more impactful, and it runs deeper, which is super cool. So that's the plan is, and again, the way that we pick the merch is putting it in front of people and saying, what do you want to see? Let's do a poll. Let's figure this out. And we'll probably do that a lot with other stuff too.
Yeah, that's been the coolest part is seeing everybody involved, and giving their insight, I guess, into what kind of stuff they want to see, and like you said, the transparency of just bringing everybody along for the ride. You know what I mean? Because we've been doing this for two years plus by the time the Kickstarter lands. And it's just bringing everybody, and I've always maintained with a lot of the things you can have no faces or whatever the case may be, but I think if you include people on the we've shown behind the scenes stuff on the reels, and that shows that it's just people doing cool things. So if you bring them along on those, and that's how Karma Void, shout out to him. Some of the stuff I've seen, and it's also, that's another awesome. So it's it's just gonna keep growing. So it's
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, yeah, putting our faces out there and stuff, it is weird. It's like one of those things where it's like, oh, it's really easy to not do that. And it feel like even like doing that behind the scenes video, doing these podcasts, it's like, oh, this is different. This feels different. But again, it's like we want to show people that like, hey, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. We've never done this before. Like, if someone else out there is like, oh, I have an idea for this and I don't know what I'm doing, like, I want them to see us and be like, well, those guys are moving. Maybe they're not moving far, but they're fucking doing something. And like, if we can inspire on that level, I'm stoked. Like,
time's gonna pass anyway.
I think
it takes years.
And I think the more we get into it, right? Like the more we talk, like we've talked to like, people in the entertainment industry and things like that. I think my biggest learning so far is no one knows what the fuck they're doing. So that whole idea of like, oh, there's like some people in another room that just know all this stuff that I don't have any idea about and I can't like be on their level. That's complete bullshit. So whatever you want to do, no one knows what the fuck they're doing. All you got to do is just like, strap up and go fucking get the thing or whatever,
Yeah. Or find a group of friends that, like these guys, you know what I mean? Like we each have our own strengths and then powers combined.
Exactly.
Type of deal. So
if you will it, dude, it is no dream.
And that's great to hear y'all saying that. Again, we've been doing this for about a year now, this show, and I think about 90% of the musicians that we had on have said the exact same thing of find some friends, find people that will support you, and you just have to start. And I mean, even the show itself would start off with, viewers know Will, just him in front of a camera with a Zoom background. And from there, we've kind of upped the production value and learned as we went.
Totally.
But that's the biggest thing is just getting out there and starting. And, you'll find 100%. Your niche, you'll find your community, you'll find what you need to do.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like something like Vampire Surf Cult, it's like, if we put this out here and everyone's like, oh, whatever, dude, like, I'm good. Or like, it's just like, I feel like, every time we get more followers or people are interacting or someone will say something super inspiring, like that shit hits. And it's like, oh, all right, we clearly have something here. I don't know what it's going to be. It might be rad. It might suck at the end of the day, but like it's something, right? It's something. And again, I keep saying this because I truly believe it, but it's like, this shit is brick by brick every day. You're adding value to your little thing every day, no matter what you do. Like every post, every piece of art, every podcast, everything you're doing is just a little piece of value. And like, every day is going to go by regardless. So it's like, might as well. And then who knows? We might have a TV show one day, or, we might just have a bunch of stuffed animals with huge asses. So we'll see.
I'm ready for it. Send me one.
Either way, it sounds like a win-win. So.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't lose.
Yeah. That's it's all perspective, right? You're like, who cares?
We gotta sell this.
No, but yeah, it's been fun, man. Like you said, Tone, growing, your guys' channel. It's like, you show up for yourself every day, and I run a podcast. And I started with shitty fucking USB microphones, that picked up so much frequencies. Like one of our episodes had Heart playing through the whole thing. But fucking, if you pause, if you go back to that episode, and when we're not talking, you hear fucking and we're like, yeah.
Wait, Barracuda the whole time?
Yeah,
it sounds sick.
So like you said, you up the production, and you go through your levels, and you'll get there eventually, and you'll find people along the way, and that's everybody's doing that every day. So totally. It's good. It's good to do it with friends and like-minded individuals.
Fuck yeah,
definitely. And you brought it up earlier. Started with a team of 5, and now it's grown exponentially to include all these different, from producers to voice actors to musicians, which, for anyone that doesn't know, I mentioned a little earlier, there is currently a Vampire Surf Cult EP out on all streaming platforms, I believe. At least Spotify is where I found it.
It's out. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it should be on pretty much all the major ones.
Awesome. And the in-universe band Rabid Tendencies, they're the ones performing it in the trailer. But who are you all working with that created that EP, and who are you going to be working with, moving forward to keep creating music for the show?
Totally, yeah. So music was like a really cool surprise for us of like, basically what happened was, we worked really hard on the pilot. We're working really hard on the pilot. And then we were like, all right, we basically have enough funds that we can string together to create a nice trailer. So then we like really hyper focus on the trailer. By the time we storyboarded it and, figured out the pipeline of getting the animation done and all that, from our perspective, at least the people on this call, it was like, okay, we're kind of good right now. Like we've just done a ton of work, and now Mutlu and his team are figuring out a lot of the animation and going through the cleanups and all the key frames and all that crazy shit that takes forever. So we were like, okay, well, we have this whole scene in the bar where there's a band playing, and it was like, okay, what? And then like we love this immersion, this idea of like, oh, it's not a show, it's everything, it's clothes, it's toys, it's games, it's whatever. So we're like, well, what if instead of like just random music, like we make like a world, like Blood Island has its own music scene, and we get to basically direct it, which is super fun challenge and super creative. And then so I was like, I'm none of us are musicians, none of us are. I mean, we all had at least I did. I had a band when I was like in high school or whatever. But one of my buddies that I met along the way through friends at Hasbro, his name's Kyle Therian. He owns Railroad Park Recording, which is like this rad recording studio that's like basically in a bunch of like RVs and trailers and on the back of his property, that he's like totally decked out with like a whisper room and like everything you need to like record incredible music. So he's the only one I knew in the world with a decent recording studio, and he's also just like a super rad creative guy. So I gave him a call and was like, listen, we're working on this cartoon. Here's some of the artwork for it. We want to create some music to, for this scene that we have in our trailer, of like this like rad, beach bar that's like has a live set playing. And he was like all day, like, he's like, that is awesome. So we started working with him, and then he came back and was like, listen, I love this. He's like, I record bands all day long. He's like, I love it. It's my life. But like, this kind of work is such a breath of fresh air to me. He's like, let's just keep doing this. So like, we ended up using Kyle for everything, audio wise. So he did every sound effect for the trailer. He recorded all the voice talent for the trailer. And then he's done everything from off that EP is from him and his team. A really cool part was like, so again, he's just a fucking crazy dude. So to get the Foley, like the sound effects of like, the ocean or the thunder or the seagulls, he like it just so happened like, the timing of this was lining up with like a trip that he was taking out to England. So he was like on a beach in England recording like the ocean and the seagulls, and then like a big dump truck dumped rocks into another truck, and he was like, oh, I caught that, and that's the thunder. And then like he went to like this 150-year-old pub, and he like sat down and had a beer and just recorded the bar like sound effects, basically like people talking, people spilling drinks and all that stuff. And like all that stuff that he caught in England is like now in our, trailer forever, which is just like super cool. But yeah, so he's just been unbelievably great partner, super creative, like adding ideas where we like, what if we did this? What if we did that? So it's been like super, super dream work with him, and his network is just so deep because he works with, all these artists that are recording at a studio all the time. And he has like super deep connections in like, he was like, I think he toured Warped Tour a bunch of times. So all of his buddies are music guys, and, he's sharing all this shit with them, and they're like, this is sick. I want to contribute. I want to be a voice. I want to do this. So like, it's just been really rad. And like, again, we didn't realize that coming out the gate, like, oh, this is a thing. Like, this is a magical part of what makes Vampire Circle unique is like this, Blood Island music scene. So like, we have tons of plans. Like we want to find a way to bring bands outside, like bands from all over the world that are just like, want to be involved with our brand, and to basically the ability for them to create vampire music that we can then share with our fans and all that stuff. We have an idea of like a Blood Island Battle of the Bands that we're kind of playing with right now that might unfold in 2025, working with our lawyers to figure out like the best way to be able to like everyone to like, be able to hold their rights and figure out how that works. And, maybe if we put out like a mixtape or like whatever, like we're just figuring all that out, all the details. But I think that could be something that's like super fun to like incorporate a bunch of these super talented bands that have been reaching out to us, be like, let's make music. This is awesome. Like we want to be involved. Yeah. And then beyond that, like, yeah, just making more music with Kyle and his team and like all of his buds that want to get in on it. Like we're in the process of that now, of just like, like let's just keep making music, because nothing's cooler than like someone posting a picture on their Instagram of like just like randomly nothing to do with our show or our brand, but they're just using a Vampire Surf Cult track as their backer, and it's just like, oh, that's awesome. That's just that's magic.
Music is my life.
Well, I mean, the music is obviously, it focuses around the show, the lyrics and everything wise, but it's just good music too.
Yeah.
Like, even without the context of the show, I think it's just fun to listen to. Do you all have like a favorite track that when he sent over your way, you're like, oh, this is going to be the big one?
I feel like they all were like those moments like, wait, are you kidding me? Like, this is real? Like, fucking killed it, And it would be like those things that, like, Kyle would be like, well, what are you feeling? And we'd be like, I don't know, something like The Cure. And then he'd be like, all right, here's Waves of Blood, which is like that vibe. And then just like, just I think like for me personally, which I didn't expect it to be, but like Moonbathing with like the ocean sound intro and like these like big belting like emo chords and like just scream like those like crowd screams and stuff, like for whatever reason I listen to that song the most for sure.
Mine's got to be California Bleeding. That song, that's just been my favorite song since I think it was released, and I was just like, holy shit, I can't believe this is on the Vampire Surf Cult EP.
Yeah, I think
you can listen to that one over and over again.
Yeah. Mine's Waves of Blood. But California Bleeding is the second one. Gives me like skate video vibes.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like one thing that, again, I don't know if people caught this, but we have a new song that we did release, but you had to beat, if you beat the annoying vampire heads in the puzzle challenge and you got to the next scene, which was the texting between Eclipse and Callisto, which are two vampire shredlords. During the texting scene, we played the new song. I don't know if people picked up on that, but it's just another like little Easter egg. That song we'll probably release that song soon, but it's, again, that one's like a really like goth Molchat Doma inspired like vampire nightclub kind of song, which is fun. But yeah, that's our newest one that we'll probably release to the general public soon, but we wanted to make it special by putting it in the puzzle somewhere. Yeah,
that's super cool. I obviously did not complete it because I did not realize that.
It's still, if anyone wants to go fuck with it, it's still up. If you go to thrashoween.com, you can still play the game and go through the texting and like listen to the song, and like, it's still up, and you just don't win anything rad if you beat it, sadly.
You get some bragging rights. You can be like,
yeah, there you go.
Well, with, obviously the big skate culture, big surf culture surrounding a show like this, it's all like very SoCal based, right? Are you all like from that area, Southern California?
Yeah, no way, not even close. We're literally
the complete opposite
opposite coast. We're in Rhode Island, and some of us are in Massachusetts, but yeah. So the whole, I grew up as skateboarding my whole life. I'm gonna be 39 soon. And then like over the pandemic, I got into surfing, and as an older dude, it's like way more forgiving than skating. But like I always attribute like my career, getting into design, getting into caring about brands and things like that. I always connect that back to skateboarding. Like some of my favorite brands are like early, like mid 80s World Industries, the way that they marketed, the way that they were like a fuck you brand, like that shit has inspired me. That inspires Vampire Surf Cult for sure. But yeah, so always like, since I was a kid, been into that scene, and, I feel like I understand it very well. But now being an old dude who is afraid of breaking my wrist and not being able to work, it's, I can just live vicariously through a cartoon.
I got friends that still skateboard at our age, and it's just like, maniac.
Brave. I have all the respect in the world.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, growing up skateboarding, and
these are my money makers. I can't break these wrists.
That's what I wanted to do out of high school was, do skate videos and with my Sony Hi8, go hit the gaps and fucking, I wasn't like the best skateboarder, but I was the video guy.
With Spike Jones.
When we went out, and editing our, bullshit, our version of like, BHC or CKY type shit.
Yeah, well, that guy's just as important. You don't hear the stories without the guy holding the camera.
100%.
This is true. This is true.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I had assumed that y'all, or at least one of you, was from Southern California with just the vibe from the show and everything like that. So
no,
that's interesting.
I'm in Western Mass by way of Puerto Rico.
I think like another inspiration factor is like right when for the 2 years we were working on this, I was traveling to Los Angeles and staying in Venice like basically every month. And again, that whole scene there was just like super inspirational as far as like their surf and skate culture there too. And then like, yeah, I think like with Blood Island, we wanted to make it feel like the culture wasn't born there. It washed up there. So like picture like, old skate videos or surf videos or whatever, like kind of landed there via the ocean dumping trash on the island. So we wanted to have like it's a smattering of like, is it Southern California? Is it coming from like this place or what time period? And like that whole island kind of is a mishmash, kind of like clusterfuck of, culture, time period, etc.
Yeah, that's actually like a perfect segue into, I know we just hit an hour and just going to bring up the show itself, but the show's about a human named Cody that, there's a shipwreck. He's wearing some kind of amulet around his neck that protects him at least enough to get washed up onto Blood Island, where he finds out, he meets Thrash, finds out this is an island full of monsters, vampires, werewolves. Should we expect like any other type of, I don't know, cryptids or anything else?
I'll you take that, Connor.
Definitely expect other creatures and more magical beings outside of just vampires and werewolves. But no, Cody's just a normal human washing up on shore. Gonna learn in the pilot that a lot of his memory is not intact, so that's gonna play a role in how he views being on the island. Is it gonna be, I gotta get back home? Is it gonna be Lost Boys situation, live here forever and just party? So that's gonna be a major theme to play with in the first season, as he starts to regain memories of who he is and what his life is all about.
Definitely, yeah. It sounds like exciting stuff to learn his story. And I mean, y'all already have season 1. It sounds like pretty set. I think you had mentioned like 10 episodes in one of your videos and kind of a loose season 2 and 3 if things go well and progress forward.
Exactly. Yeah, I have it's purposely out of shot here, but I have a big dry erase board with all of the season 1 story arcs all set up on it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Just out of view.
Confidential.
Cool. Well, with some of those monsters, werewolves, vampires, and everything, you had brought up the antagonist of the show, or at least one of the big bads, the dragon. Can we get any maybe insight on that? What people can expect? Is it an actual dragon, or is it just the name of the big bad?
No, it's just the name. So he definitely has dragon-like kind of, I guess,
features.
Yeah, that's the right word in iconography. But he's going to be one of 10 what we're calling shredlords on the island. They're kind of like they kind of rule the school. They have territories on the island that belong to them, and they're kind of followers, I guess would be a good word for him. But he's one of those, and he is very much not happy that Cody has arrived on Blood Island.
If you scour through all the stuff that we put out there, he's the one shredlord that we haven't previewed yet. You can't find any visuals of him yet. But I think all the other 9 are somewhere, whether on Instagram or TikTok or wherever.
So definitely a reason to watch, find out more about the dragon if this has intrigued you, an hour into this talk.
Hell yeah.
You have a few other characters that I think are super cool that I just want to bring up. I think the greatest character name I've ever heard is Nose for Sawdude. Nose for Sawdude. Like just the name, and if you haven't seen the design, it's up on their Instagram and everything. I'll probably throw a little picture of him here, but probably the best name I've ever heard of a character. Like,
yeah, that wouldn't just, some names just they write themselves.
Yeah.
But we got on this whole thing where every time we talk or like pick up the phone and be like, "So, dude," and then that slowly like deteriorated into everything. And so when we were figuring out this character. And Connor, I think you can give them a little bit of a a backstory on Nosferatu because he is a fun, unique character. But
yeah, he's another shred lord, and we knew we wanted one to kind of represent the Nosferatu vampire, kind of like unsettling, hairless, sort of scary type of vibe, but he's definitely going to play the role of more of like a surf guru kind of
core lord.
Not even just specifically surfing, but just kind of like a grounding presence on the island, unlike some of the other shred lords. And yeah, just like it kind of, like Adam said, wrote itself. We were saying Nosferatu way too close to when we were saying Saw, dude, and just got peanut butter in our chocolate there, and we had to do it.
Yeah.
No,
It's
love when
awesome.
things work out that way. What is the, I guess, general attitude of the residents of Blood Island towards humans? You know, Thrash kind of doesn't seem hostile towards Cody in the trailer, but it does seem like the Shred Lords at least aren't too keen to him.
Yeah, he's more like an oddity, kind of like there's not as much as people might think of like a predator prey dynamic there. Well, for everyone, I should say. We kind of have a system on the island where our own kind of rules for vampires, and that will play out and kind of explain why this human who washes up isn't either immediately turned or ripped to shreds.
Right.
But yeah, the attitude towards Cody and humanity in general will vary character to character.
But I'd say like overall, it's more of, yeah, as Connor said, an oddity, or like almost like a celebrity of like, oh my God, there's a human. Like we never see them here. Kind of flipping that role of like, you know, if there was a vampire that came out in front of us, it'd be like, oh shit, what is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's more of like shock and awe and like curiosity. Because a lot of these vampires have been in Blood Island for millennia, or they were born there, which may sound weird, but we have an explanation for that as well. But yeah, so seeing a human, as Thrash says in the trailer, he's like, never seen a human before. That is going to be like the general populace is going to feel very similar to that, of just like, oh shit, is that a human? Like I'm getting a selfie with Cody because I've never seen a human before. You know what I mean? That kind of vibe.
Yeah, and you talk about the rules of vampires on Blood Island, and you know, one of the shorts you put out does show a guy putting on like super SPF, wearing all sorts of stuff for the sun, so they can't go out in the sun still. One of the things, I guess, one of the tropes that I really like that y'all changed up is garlic does not repel the vampires; instead, they smoke it.
Yeah.
Which, like, again, that stoner comedy, you know, Cheech and Chong, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted the garlic to feel like, you know, everyone thinks it's really dangerous to vampires, but it actually was part of like a war on drugs, reefer madness type of play. And it's like, no, it's not actually dangerous.
Yeah, it's just how the media has been portraying it in pop culture for the last 100 years.
That was the play for that.
Propaganda.
But yeah, and if you make any magic, or especially like vampires, werewolves, monsters, like it just becomes part of it. You have to figure out rules and systems and like how does it work, because those always make the best storylines, the best villains, and the best way to kind of roll out information and stakes and stuff like that.
See, stakes. And then I think like one like it is so much fun, right? Because it's like, at first we were like, well, like, you know, vampire lore states that X and Y. And it's like, we're making a fucking goofy stoner cartoon. Like we can make whatever we want. It's like, but again, we want it to be solid. So it's like, as long as we remain consistent and like keep the canon straight and all that stuff. But like, it's been a blast of like rethinking what we want our vampires to, you know, what their rules are, what our werewolf rules are. I think like one that we're getting excited about recently is like, we decided that, that crosses are not, they don't like kill vampires, but they make them sick and they vomit when they see a cross. So like, that's just like a weird thing that we're like, hey, let's spin this rule a little bit. Like we like the idea that like, oh, this is something that's like, you know, deep in vampire lore, but like, let's put our own little spin on it and like create some fun visual gags and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. And you see, you know, one of the locations that is already set up is Sid's bar, which vampires coming out, getting drunk on blood. So still a thing there. They're drinking blood. Is there, I guess one of the questions I had for the werewolves and everything, is it just almost an eternal night type thing over there? Is it always a full moon? Is it
Yeah,
Secrets you
so
can't
no,
tell?
it plays much like our real life here, but they're nocturnal creatures, so they sleep during the day and they come out at night, which we're gonna play with a lot of that stuff too. I think like one thing that is really fun and makes our animation feel really unique is that most like 90% or more is going to be at night. So like our color palette, the way we do lighting, the way we do neon, like all that stuff is very identifiable just because, Blood Island comes alive at night, which is really fun to play with.
Cool.
Did I answer the whole question there? Or was there more?
Yeah, it was like, is it always a full moon?
So the moon is really important on Blood Island. So there's certain events, lunar events that happen on Blood Island that are completely attached to what phase the moon's in and things like that. So that's really going to be an interesting thing to kind of like figure out and portray. But yeah, the full moons are big deals on Blood Island, and especially when they get into like the super moons and blood moons and all those kind of like hyper rare events are all going to have their own consequences there.
Tons of exciting stuff coming up. Angel, did you have anything to add to that?
No. I'm biased to the werewolves. So anything to do with werewolves, I'm excited. So yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, and also one question that we get sometimes that I want to clear up is like, is there a rivalry between vampires and werewolves on the island or anything like that? Or is there like territorial? Are they territorial? And they're not. Like they live completely harmoniously, and yeah, they're buds, and there's nothing weird there.
Yeah, there'd be more likely to be like a confrontation between people, like followers of different shredlords, than between a vampire and werewolf, just for the sake of them being vampires and werewolves.
Got you. Besides the bar fights and then fighting each other in that way, there's no interest.
Well, yeah. When you can regenerate and live forever, fights are inconsequential, so they're gonna happen.
But...
Yeah. Especially if you're partying and getting all garlicked up.
Yeah. Having a Bloodweiser.
Yeah.
Well, I think the most important question that everyone wants to know, when can we expect episode 1, and how is that first season rollout going to look?
Yeah, so I wish we had super clear answers here, but the plan is right now, we're in development of the pilot, so we're working on writing and storyboarding and just getting into the meat and potatoes of it. Where the money really starts to hit is when we go into like finalized, like actually doing page by page, scene by scene animation. So the plan is we're gonna get through storyboarding, writing, casting, and all that fun up until the Kickstarter. The goal is that the Kickstarter is going to give us enough funding so we can go directly into animation. And the trailer took us so long because it was Mutlu and maybe one or two other animators that were assisting him along the way. The idea is that if we raise enough money on Kickstarter, we're going to build a team for Mutlu. We're already like, as I mentioned, so many awesome creatives have been reaching out to us. We're making short lists of animators, voice actors, potential character voices, sound designers, all that kind of stuff. And what our plan is to, again, we want to keep this as indie as possible. We want to see if the Kickstarter can get us, either all the way there or most of the way there on getting this pilot completely funded. If we can do that, depending on how much funds we get, it's going to be a direct correlation to the speed in which we can release the pilot. So the idea there is basically, hopefully we'll have enough to do it quickly, and we'll already have all the storyboards and all the scripting and all that done. We're shooting for like a 6 month, 6 to 8 months being what we need to get the animation in a really tight spot for that full episode. Once we have that full episode, we're going to work with our executive producers, a group of ferrets, and we're going to try to find a home for this thing. And that could look like a million different things, right? It could be anything from, a distribution play or some sort of like, a network ordering a few episodes from us or whatever. But the idea there is basically like if we get the pilot out and then we get, this thing out there and in front of the right people, and, we can then manage to get commitments to then make a full season. So that and then this is our first time doing this. We have no idea what we're doing, but yeah. That feels like the right way to kind of play this. And, we're always open to like many things could change and there could be other ways of going about it. But like, that's kind of like seems to be us the clearest way to move forward. And again, I don't want people to think that like, oh God, I gotta wait 6 months and this whole thing's gonna get like fizzled out or whatever. Our plan is to like the entire time we're developing that pilot episode is like we currently already have a comic book in production that we're working on. That's a nice little teaser. And like basically as we've kind of shown you, and we're an hour and something in, there's so much to this. There's so many layers. We're in love with this island, and we're telling all these different stories, and the characters are all rich and deep. And we want to like the animation's only going to be able to tell so many of these stories. So we're looking for other ways to do it, whether that's a digital game, whether that's a comic book series, whether that's just like really fun social content, or what if we did a trading card game? Like there's a million options, right? And we intend to like keep going down all these roads and like seeing what fits for the brand. That way it's like, yes, it might take us a half a year to get the first episode out, but this whole time we're going to be still playing with the brand, having fun, introducing new elements to every character and all that. So it's like, that's what we really want to do, is like not have it be so dependent on the show's the only thing. We want like this to be an entire experience, or something that's like a community that like it's always alive. It's always breathing.
Definitely, yeah. And you brought it up. I'm glad you did. It was going to be the last thing I brought up. The different mediums that you're going to have Vampire Surf Cult invade. Super excited to see like the comic strips that will be coming out. Super excited to see just these other forms of learning more about this whole world of Blood Island and the Vampire Surf Cult itself.
Totally.
Like you said, best way to support and to get this out there as soon as possible. Is there a date that Kickstarter is going to go live?
So we're not like super, we don't have like an exact date right now.
But moon's not ready. The moon's not ready.
Exactly. When we believe this is a cult, like this is a ceremonial crowdfund. Like there's layers to this shit. But I think like, yeah, the best thing that anyone can do that likes what we're doing or wants to support or whatever is like literally just like, share, comment, engage, like talk to us. And then when we do start rolling with the Kickstarter, follow us there. We're going to be doing a bunch of updates there and things like that to keep everyone in the loop. And again, like share all those, like, here are the tier information. Here's what the pricing is going to be, and like, be able to be interactive and conversational when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, I think like, honestly, we're not asking for much. We're not doing like, we did a merch drop for Thrasherween only. We want this stuff to be special. So like all that merch was only on sale for 24 hours. We could have left it up and tried to make more money over time, but we're like, let's just make this stuff special.
Yeah.
So we might drop some surprise, like, hey, we're going to drop this specific product for this specific short amount of time or whatever. But I think it's just a way for us to like provide value to, our fan base and our followers that want to like have something that's a little bit more special than like a easily accessible t-shirt or whatever. So there might be more stuff like that too that's fun prior to the Kickstarter. But we're saving all like the real juicy merch, like the vinyl toys, the vinyl record, the cool stuffed animal, all like the custom, really like product design stuff. That's all going to be saved for the Kickstarter specifically, which we're hoping like, gets people really jammed up.
Yeah, and other than that, just if people were like, subscribe, share, because like we already said, there's like a small core team of us. We don't have like a marketing department or anything, so we kind of got to play the algorithms. And so any interactions work too to get word out to see, we want to make sure that if this thing really resonates with people or they like it, that they at least get a chance to know it exists. So
totally.
Well, you've heard it here first. We're going to have all the links down below and we'll have them on screen as well. But get out there, go support, go follow the pages and get some of that exclusive, goodies that are going to be coming out. I think this is a super awesome project that's going to be coming out, and I'm super excited for you guys. Thank you again for, coming on, spending a little over an hour with me. And
totally.
Thanks for having us.
Tone,
was awesome.
Tone, thank you for having us. I mean, like you reached out right when we started, and it's like, this is it's just like a rad moment of like, you've watched us kind of like try to figure this thing out, like we're starting to get a groove in it, and like you've been here the whole time, which is super rad to just like have that kind of support. And like, yeah, thank you so much for bringing us on and letting us tell you our story. And yeah, it's been awesome. Happy to do it.
Awesome. I guess are there any closing remarks from the three of you? Any, I don't know, favorite horror movie quote, anything, favorite quote from the show? Something to close with.
Vampires, what?
Wolfman's got nards.
Let's just sit here a while and see what happens.
Love it. Thank you all once again for coming on. Y'all have a good rest of your night.
Awesome. You too, man.